Hotep.
Hotep.
What's going on, fam?
Yeah, I'm good. Doing my best, family. How you doing?
I'm all right. We're here on another episode of Blog Talk Radio. We're here with a student teacher of the master teacher, Paa Nabab Yaanuwn, Sobek Dotson.
Yep. Glad to be here as always.
I had grabbed a scroll from the master teacher, and it's coming out of the book of Let's Set the Record Straight. And there was one question. It says, what are historians' beliefs on the first inhabitants of America?
Okay, sure. Yeah, that is an excellent scroll. First, I do want to say, as always, thank you for having me. I am a student teacher of Paa Nabab Yaanuwn, who is the master of heaven and earth. And in that scroll that you're referring to, let's set the record straight. What happens is you have different versions of who were the first inhabitants of America. And we say historians because you're coming from the viewpoint of his story. He can only go back so far. So coming from their viewpoint, you have some modern historians who actually say things like the first inhabitants of America were the black asteroids, and then they only date back 30,000 years ago. However, if I could, I want to bring this to your attention. If you take that word, asteroid, and break it in half as a compound word, you actually get astra and then loid, from the astra, meaning someone or thing that lives or inhabits Australia. Now, this is what they want you to believe, that indigenous people are actually aboriginals who live in Australia. However, that's no way that could actually be, because the aboriginals, if you see them, the indigenous people, they actually have blonde hair. And blonde hair is actually a sign of a regressive or recessive gene. You know, their features, on the other hand, they do stem from the New Guinea origin, which is from Africa. But that blonde, straight hair that they have, that would actually be a regressive gene. So what you're talking about, the original inhabitants, you would go back to the Olmecs. And the Olmecs had woolly or nappy hair, and then they would actually braid their hair. Australians don't have the flat follicles. Their actually hair, or their follicles, straight of 6 ether. And I'm going to go over 6 ether and 9 ether. But 6 ether for this, their hair has like an anchor or curl at the root of it. And then it grows out at a slant, and it lies flat on the surface of their skin. But the follicles of woolly or 9 ether hair, which is different from 6 ether, the 9 ether hair is actually flat, and it grows out to form a tight curl. And the hair is the key. It's simple and it's clear. It's like in the case of a baby, babies are born with straight or curly hair. But as they mature or get older, that's when their genes start to get stronger, and then their hair thickens. So the Australoids couldn't have been the indigenous people of America. Unless, of course, they're trying to say that the apes sailed over here or walked over to America, or are you admitting that Australia was once a part of Africa? So whichever way they try to, fit that in, there's certain realities that they actually, they have to face regarding that. But also, this information about the hair, the follicles, is also explained further in what's called our hereafter doctrine, or wu-nuwaupu. It's a patarak that's called, it's called concentration. And from verses 17 to 23, you get more information on why the follicles of 6 ether hair and what's the importance of having follicles of 9 ether hair. So when you go to verse 17, yeah.
So what is 9 ether and 6 ether hair, if you don't mind explaining that for a second?
Oh, absolutely. What you have is different degrees of ether, and 9 ether is the most important strand of hair that you can actually have. And what happens is Paa Reye, or the sun, it loves your tightly curled spiral wabar hair, your 9 ether hair, your dark to black hair. It is our kinked, twisted hair, for they are like wired antennae or antennae. Basically, your tatu ak, or 9 ether, natural waba, which is nuwaupu for hair, it serves as an aerial ethereally to send out and receive radio signals. So beings who don't have 9 ether hair will not be able to send out or receive those signals from our Natharu. Some beings can only go up to 6 ether. When you start vibrating on a tone higher than that, they can't hear you. Those beings that I'm referring to that cannot hear you would be those beings, those ghost colorless deities that they have us giving our spiritual energy to. They can't hear us when we actually speak in our natural tones because it's at a vibrational rate higher than they can actually ascend to. So when you were dealing with 9 ether and 6 ether, there's a distinct difference of the beings who radiate or vibrate on those particular degrees. So also, in that Patarak concentration, you would make note as the oldest Salau or race on this wu-nuwaupu planet, you are the only race with actual hair. Now, just like it teaches us out of Let's Set the Record Straight, Patarak also teaches us when a newborn Radza, babe or baby, comes into this tapal, T-A-P-A-L, tapal, which is Nuwaupu for world, their genes are at their weakest point. They're just getting here from the spiritual realm. So when they get to this physical existence, they're at their weakest point. But they have thin, straight, or wavy fur or fur like all other animals on this Kawak planet. Trust and believe these humans who think that they're above the animal race are only deceiving themselves. We are all animals. We're either mammalian, reptilian, or a combination of both. But as they grow, their genes become stronger, and that Farah, which is weakest point, actually changes into Wabar, which is Nuwaupu for hair. So yes, as Paa Nabab teaches us, he says, so yes, my Najin Karadu, which is star children, the Re'e, sun, loves your nappy natural hair. But your genes, meaning our genes, 9 ether beings, our genes have actually been invaded by outsiders and still being invaded with each genetic kiss or exchange of bodily meye, which is Nuwaupu for fluids. So there's a difference in degrees of who has what ether, what deity corresponds to the ether or the vibrational rate of that. So you have 9, which is us, then you have 6, which is actually adverse to 9. Even when you look at the numbers, a 6 is nothing but a 9, but it's in the opposite direction, which means we're in opposite directions on the field of natural nature. We are not the same.
Are you saying that the Olmecs are these people or descendants of these people?
All right, that's a good question, and of course that's the question that people would say, well, if the Olmecs are first, are these people descendants of them? And actually, in the book, Let's Set the Record Straight, on page 31, it actually addresses that question as well. And Paa Nabab Yaanuwn, he teaches us, he says, no, these pygmies are not Olmecs because the Olmecs do not fit in the size brackets of the pygmies. So what that means is, as we were explaining about the history of the first inhabitants to America, the master teacher, he goes on to say that other historians believe that the diminutive blacks migrated here from Africa as Homo sapiens. So the word diminutive, of course, means extremely small in size. So the list of groups of people that were small in size would be such as pygmies, negritos. They're also referred to as bushmen, sea people, or little black men. So that's where the question is, are you saying are the Olmecs or the descendants people of them? And that's where he teaches us, no, they are not, because they're not the same, they don't fit the same size brackets of the pygmies. Lucy, who's one of the oldest beings discovered, was actually 4 feet. So she would be considered a pygmy because the height criteria is less than 5 feet. And a dwarf, the height criteria is less than 4 feet 2 inches. So whatever they're saying is the Olmecs were actually taller. So being that they were taller, they didn't fit that size criteria, they would also not be considered the small people who came here. There was an extraterrestrial intervention of very tall beings who, according to your Bible, for those who follow the Bible, they came down and they mixed in 2 different occasions with these pygmies or indigenous people. And this can be found in Genesis 6:1 and Genesis 6:4. So these are other people who were considered giants in the earth in those days. You had a mixture and a breeding process. That's what these gods are talking about. It says, and the sons of God went in unto the daughters of man. So if there was only one God, there was no reason to say sons of God. God has sons. These are also gods as well. At least they would be, because they're more advanced than the people whom which they came down and bred with, that created other beings of them in their image and after their likeness.
Okay, so are the historical beliefs on where Olmecs come from?
Yeah, I mean, there are. And again, we have to understand that a lot of this, when you say are there historical beliefs, yes, because there are historians or those of their race who wrote the stories and how they see things happening. So according to one historian in particular, Ivan van Sertima, and others, of course, they say the Olmecs were a mixture of three people. 1, Mongoloids, 2, Negroids, 3, Caucasoids. It's not totally incorrect. It's just in the wrong order. Because, of course, we know the black germ or seed would come before the brown, the yellow, or the red seed. That's just common sense in so terms as dominant colors. Not until they're bred with other colors do they become lesser or less potent in gases, elements, complexion, things of that nature. So the Negroid, or the Olmecs, as the Aztecs called them, because of their homeland, which was Nuba, would come first because the dominant progressive gene, as I was just stating, that black seed would come before the two regressive races of the list. That would be the red and the yellow seed. So they would put it in the order, as they always do, to make themselves be either the forefront or the foremost authority on these facts. So it's not. It's the Aztecs called the Olmecs rubber people because they manufactured rubber from Nuba, which is a country, as we all know, that's in South Africa. So rubber is found in Africa, where the Olmecs migrated from as Nubans, and Central and South America, which is where they migrated to and became the Olmecs, or dwellers of the rubber land.
Okay. So from a historical point, basically, the pygmies cannot come from Olmecs.
Right. Only due to the size of the Olmecs. So now there were different seeds, because the Nubans originally came here like millions of years ago, before the continental drift, and they set up colonies. So they were dark-skinned, woolly-haired people, big lips, wide noses, etc. They were known in Egyptian science as the Nasi, or the Nasu. Then the Hexians under Hushin of the Shang dynasty, the yellow seed, or in Egyptian scientists again, the Namu. They came here, they mixed in with the Nubians. So all what you have is the Nubians were the root race. You also have the pygmies who actually go further, called the Patahites. See what I'm saying? So they were even here longer than them. The Olmecs were a part of the original seed, that dark-skinned seed, but you got the Patahites who actually were here even longer than that, because something had to come and mix in with the shorter beings to create that taller race.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have 3 other questions I grabbed from online.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one I got was, what does the phrase eat to live mean, and how does it relate to us?
Okay. All right. That's a good question. You said the term eat to live. And if I'm not mistaken, just give me a second, but I'm pretty sure I read that in what's called The Master Secret, series number 1. And that one is called The Birth of Earth and the Matrix. So if we go to that same scroll, again, it's The Master Secret, series number 1. And I believe it starts in verses 47. If you want to understand the phrase of eat to live and how it relates to us, it begins with verse 47. It says, the Caucasus or Caucasoid race and their helpers of sub-races, they grafted tabiao, which is wu-nuwaupu, for natural food, into mankind synthetic baharat foods. The sharabat drinks, smokes, and jasad flesh. So what that's saying is these Caucasoid race, they came along and took what we would eat naturally, and they grafted it into synthetic foods. And so they have many of us, Negroids, eating, drinking, smoking, and breathing their fake, unnatural chemicals. So ZF, or fake edible food, targeted for you to eat. That's us. They target that for us to eat. So some call it fast food or processed food or genetically modified organisms, GMO. But they are designed to remove the natural substances created in each of us to protect our immune system. Now follow me. I'm going to take you where what eat to live means, but this is you have to understand what they're doing in order to understand how to combat that. So most fast food restaurants, they are established by the Caucasus or Caucasoids. You need to get approved by them to open up your stores, your businesses. They check your output to make sure it's not healthy and immune degrading. In other words, they try to make sure that they have junk to downgrade your DNA to junk. So the phrase eat to live is not about how much or how often one eats. It's about the natural intake. So they seek to reduce your immunity and slowly kill you, as they know they are dying themselves. But Mother Nature also has in her more substances for the original black people, substances found in what is naturally grown on the planet, substances for your immune system. So just as a newborn, again, we're going back to that, a newborn baby turns to its mother's breast, for nature has actually created in the mother a substance called colostrum in her milk that contains these immunities. And know this also, Nuwaupians, an accepted partner can bring to your strong immune system their weaknesses to weaken or even break down your own immune system. So a Fafreye Kayu, or Africans, we have the strongest immune system on this planet. Africans can travel to any part of the planet, drink any water, and not fear sickness or death. We survive many diseases that kill other races. Point in fact, this whole Ebola thing, you have to keep your eye on that. Just because we can survive these many diseases, they actually have to graft again, which is what they do, something unnatural, this aggressive bacteria to try to kill off the Negaru. If it kills us, then they know it's going to kill anybody else. Yet, now that the Negaru, us, the Negroids who have lived outside of Africa with these other Salalu, Nuwaupu races, will become sick and die if we drink the water from Africa. But why is that? That's because the Caucasus or the Caucasoids have you living in their own image, eating what they eat, drinking what they drink, and now our immune systems have been compromised to a weaker state, and it must be renewed with the proper elements and substances you were gifted with at your creation. So to answer that question, to eat to live, it's definitely not about how much you eat. It's about what you intake naturally, what is natural to your own nature. That's how it relates to us. We must grow our own, eat stuff that's naturally inclined to our body's makeup. When we do that, that is the true meaning of eat to live.
What's the first reality?
Okay, we have time for two more questions. I have another one.
All right, let's
what does the circle orb?
ORB is orb, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, orb, yeah.
Okay, so you're asking what does the circle or the orb symbolize, correct? Oh, okay, all right. That answer is also addressed in the Master Secret, because that book, series number 1, is dealing with the birth of Earth, but is also dealing with the matrix or the body's makeup. So when you're asking what does the circle or the orb symbolize, you can actually go through verse 88, and then it goes into that. It says, the orb or the ball is the perfect and favorite form of the Nawak Supreme Source, or Kale Makwanat, which means omniverse, put all expanding. So the ball outline, the profile or the silhouette, is a perfect shanan, which is Nuwaupic for circle. It's in the form of Pakarat, the ball. It is perfect. So as you gaze up to see Paa-Reye, which is the sun, Paa, the moon, you look up at those, and the motion of the solar system, the universe is all circular motion, the mobility of roundness as the child in the womb. So the round or circular motion transforms the cube, so that the round or circular motion transforms the cube also into an orb. So even the motion of this circular solar system will transform other shapes into an orb. So you have 1, time, which is dark hole, 2, space, which is dark matter, 3, material, which is dark energy. So that births this one universe and its elements, all controlled by nature, 0 or 9, 9 to 1, or just 0, 1. Or the 9 ether symbol, which is the spiral or a circle. If you can picture a 9 in your mind, it's a line, then it spirals and conforms into a circle. So 9 is the circle. That's the perfect form for ontologists of wu-nuwaupu. Versus, in other words, there's a difference. You got wu-nuwaupu or nupu, which is the good force, or 9 ether, that's positive. Then you have Zunub or Zupu, which is an evil force, or 6 ether. It's negative and it's trapped. It can't get outside of 6 ether. So the circle or the orb is the favorite form of Paa Nabab and orb scientists. There are 24 elders who keep up with the cycles that oversee this planet, of which Paa Nabab Yaanuwn is the 19th elder. We also maintain absolute nature is global. It's perfectly round, because from any point wheresoever in eternal existence called infinite nature, it is the center of the roundness, or the black dot, because endlessness in the omniverse is the same distance in all directions. From who? From you. You are that black dot. You are that single point. So remember, the center point, which is you, of a perfect ball, orb, or circle, or cycle, is equidistant from all contours of the ball surface. So now when you understand what the orb or the circle means, it actually says now you know your purpose and the reason for birth, to perfect your being and the world around you.
Okay, can you explain what is meant by life and living?
Life and living. Okay, all right. Yeah, that is also taught by Paa Nabab Yaanuwn in one of our Patarak, which is part of our hereafter doctrine of wu-nuwaupu. There's a Patarak called the prism, and from verses 110 through 121, Paa Nabab teaches us. He says, next nuwaupu or nuwaupu, overstand this about life and living. When food substances seep through the lacteals of the small intestines and they reach the blood system, this is what happens. The acid in the blood, it ignites and it burns the substances. So the heat and energy produced from the burning, it generates pressure or blood pressure, and the blood distributes that pressure through the various glands and nerve centers throughout the body. So then the person is actually able to move at the various parts of the physical being, and the heart is able to keep the blood flowing. By this burning action, it forces pressure. The pressure then sends the blood through the various glands and the nerve centers. So by distributing that energy and nourishing particles throughout the living being to maintain strength and keep the flesh replete or active. So the burning is the imitative to all life activities of the humanoid body. For the burning is living, it is life. Therefore, when the burning stops permanently, that is life. That is the end of physical life. Then that person's body becomes cold and stiff. What is Paa Nabab teaching us when he says that body becomes cold and stiff, that there's a burning and when it stops? Well, if you open your mouth, anyone that's listening right now, yourself as well, if you open your mouth and you blow your breath on the back of your hand, you will feel that inner heat. That heat is coming from that burning. So in order to determine whether life can continue after physical death of the body, it first had to be known by you what physical life is. So you have the living, which is the constant burning of that energy that's created by the acids in you that burns any substance that comes inside. That's living. And this living of this constant burning constitutes life. When that burning stops, there is no more physical life. Of course, there's more of a build on, what happens after physical life. But in order to understand what physical life is, you have to understand how that burning actually happens. And you just do that self-test. You just blow on the back of your hand. Why is it hot if there's no burning inside? Why do you have what's called a temperature? How can you overheat? When you become imbalanced, you can actually overheat to the point of spontaneous combustion. How is that explained scientifically if there is no inner burning? Your solar plexus is a part of that. That's your inner sun. Without that light, it's like a pilot light on the oven or stove. If that goes out, you can't cook. So if your inner light goes out, there's no more to you on the physical aspect.
Oh, that's deep.
It's real. It's real. I'm telling you, Paa Nabab Yaanuwn, he is teaching us just how to know ourselves. It's more important. You have to know your body. You have to know how that works. Then you can address the spiritual side. Then you can address your soul side. Then you can address the etheric you. Then you can address the mental you, because it all goes in reverse. We've actually slowed down in vibrations, and levels and degrees just to manifest here physically. We are the most grossest part of our existence right now. And unfortunately, most of us put more emphasis on this physical side and don't ever address the spiritual side, which will be here long after the physical light, heat, fire goes out. But our master teacher is teaching us there's more to you than just that. You know what I'm saying? You're not really a physical person that's having some type of spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being that's having a physical experience.
Okay. If you may, can you, for the listening audience, could you just give them a resource where they can actually buy the scroll you work from, the wu-nuwaupu scroll, actual facts, which one you prefer for the listeners to have?
Right. Okay. Well, me again, which we're back to the circle and the orb. You see, each person is their own center. So, for an example, if 5 of us were sitting in a room and a questioner said to each of us, "How far is the door from you?" we would each have a different answer, but we'd all be right. So I couldn't say to the next person who may be listening, "Hey, get this scroll. This is good for you." What I can say is, if you get any of the Patriarchs, any of the older scrolls, what I would suggest is either visit one of the All Eyes on Egypt bookstores in whatever city you may be in. You can find out, is there a bookstore there? Or you can go to Breaking the Spell 999. That's a website that we have, and you can see which books are available that way. The best way for any individual to decide which one they want to begin with would be just to look at them. And whichever one reaches out to your soul or that inner being, and you go, "I'm attracted to that," be it by the title, be it by the cover, just by the recognition of the inner being inside to what that book will teach you, you can grab any one. I mean, you can't be wrong. Some of them are numbered, but that's not the number that they go in. It's just the number that Paa Nabab Yaanuwn has introduced us to these facts. For women, just an example, for any of our sisters who are our goddess creators, I would say pick up Goddess Creator or the Sacred Feminine. And that itself is 9, feminine, so you can get that one. You can also get Planet Earth as Woman. For those of us who are a little more inclined to the chants, things like that, I would also suggest Our Tones, Wavelengths, A. There's different books that will cater to what part of your being is the most thirsty or hungry at this time. But anyone, they're all excellent reads. They're all very informative. But more than that, they will touch you. They will touch your whole being in a way that you will know if you're on the same tune and frequency as Paa Nabab Yaanuwn. You will hear him through these books, through these scrolls. You'll know that you're on Patriarch, the way. So anyone, family, whoever's listening, any one of those, just grab one. If you have questions, you can reach out to other wu-nuwaupians. You can go to certain sites. You can email questions, and that will be addressed. You can, go on Facebook. There's wu-nuwaupians on Facebook. There's always ways where you say, "Hey, I have a question." You can also tune into us, every broadcast that we have, and perhaps I may help you. And that's my job, to read, teach. That's all Paa Nabab is asking us to do, and to become one. Love is an action word. If we do that, there won't be any division. There won't be any who's who. We'll know who's who on the planet Earth.
Definitely, listeners, I definitely heard them. If you have any questions, you can contact us either at breakingthespell999.com. You can email either me or Sobek personally and ask these questions, or like he said, simply tune into these broadcasts and all the information will be updated to you. So, Beck, thank you for coming on again. Really appreciate your time.
No, I was going to say thank you. It's my pleasure. I mean, as a student and a master teacher, these questions, they help keep me on point, but more so we're getting out wu-nuwaupu to the whole planet. So no one can say they have not heard of it. Again, I stand by everything that he stands for. He is the master teacher. He is innocent, so as far as just getting the knowledge, if you want to know knowledge of self, the very self, the true self, all components of the self, wu-nuwaupu is the way to go. Thank you again, brother. I really appreciate you having me on.